So, it is now my honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Brigadier General Tarif Bader, who is the Surgeon General of the IDF. After graduating from medical school at Ben-Gurion University, Dr. Bader completed his pediatric residency at Western Galilee University. He earned his Master's of Administration, Health Administration, and most recently, his Master's in National Security from Haifa University. And General Bader has served in the IDF since 1993, was promoted to colonel in 2011 when he became head of the Northern Medical Command, and then during his tenure, he has led numerous humanitarian aid missions around the world. Dr. Bader is the first Israeli Druze to be named Surgeon General. He lives in Herfesh in Israel, of course, with his wife and his 3 children, one of whom is here today, having a great time, and sending pictures to her siblings showing that she's here and they're not. His humanitarian missions around the world have helped save thousands of lives and really add to the IDF's legacy of coming to the aid of those in need, no matter what the geographic location or the circumstance of the disaster. So he's here today to talk about his experiences around the world, and I ask you to join with me in giving a warm welcome to General Bader.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and hope that we'll have a few minutes talking together, not about the experience of Tarif Bader, but the experience of the State of Israel and the IDF. First of all, I would like to start with this slide. This slide is the slide of the oath of the Medical Corps. And what's written here is to extend a helping hand to the wounded and to the sick. It's not talking about the Israeli people. It's not talking about the soldiers. It's not talking about the citizens. It's talking about whether common or exalted, friend or foe. This is the oath of the Medical Corps, and this is the principle of what we are doing in our experience. The State of Israel was established, as you know, in 1948. 5 years later was the first time that the State of Israel is sending a humanitarian mission, that's right, a small humanitarian mission to Greece to help others, not Israelis, to help others. And since then, you see the numbers, you see the places that the State of Israel had sent humanitarian missions through all over the world. I was lucky to be part of this humanitarian mission in Haiti. I'm a pediatrician, and I was the head of the pediatric department in Haiti. I was very lucky to start with this unique humanitarian mission, which started in 2013 and is still running until now. And I'll talk a little about that. And I commanded the latest humanitarian mission to Nepal in 2015. The humanitarian missions, this is the last 5 years. It's a little bit different between Nepal, the Philippines, and Haiti, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Saturday morning, not only the Jewish people are celebrating, but also the Druze people in Israel are celebrating. And it's amazing that most of the disasters are happening in Saturday. This is what happened in Nepal almost 3 years ago. And within seconds, thousands of people are killed. Hundreds of thousands of people went without home. And in the typhoons in the Philippines, again on Saturday morning, and you see the pictures here, again, with seconds, thousands of people were killed. And this is an amazing picture with satellite of Tacloban before and after the disaster. In Haiti, it wasn't Saturday, it wasn't in Wednesday morning, but you see again, sorry, never mind. Again, that within seconds, hundreds of people, thousands of people were killed. And you might know that Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, even before the earthquake. So what we are going to talk today a little bit about the operational challenges of establishing a field hospital. We'll talk a little bit about the medical care given in this field hospital. We'll talk a little bit about the unique case of giving a humanitarian mission over a hostile border in Syria, not in Syria, for the Syrians. This is a small correction. It's not in Syria, it's for the Syrians. And I will summarize with the lessons learned, our lessons learned from these operations. So first of all, we have a vision to help others. And how we can convert this vision to reality, first of all, is leadership. We believe that since the State of Israel had decided to send humanitarian mission whenever there is a need for that, it's a very important thing in starting these missions. The rapid decision-making between the government and the military is very important. My commander is the Chief of Staff. His commander is the Prime Minister through the Minister of Defense. And when there is a decision that we are going to send a humanitarian mission, it goes through the Prime Minister, the Minister of Defense, the Chief of Staff, and goes to Medical Corps. So it's very easy to have this done. And the key is time. Whenever the disaster starts, we start our work. Even before there is a final decision that we are going to send a humanitarian delegation. So it's very important to work in parallel. In Haiti, we were the first field hospital to be in Port-au-Prince. Within 89 hours, our field hospital came from Israel to Port-au-Prince and established the field hospital. And within 89 hours after the earthquake, the field hospital was operating. We came back very proud to be the first field hospital in the world, being in Haiti. And besides being proud of ourselves, we weren't guilty, as mentioned before. We wanted to think what else could be done to do it better, how we can shorten this time in order to do it better later. And a couple of years after that, in Nepal, we had it in 82 hours. 82 hours after the earthquake in Nepal, the field hospital was operating and ready to have casualties in Kathmandu. What helps us do that? The early dispatch of the assessment team is very important. It's a small team, again, regardless of the decision, if there is a humanitarian mission or not. We are sending a couple of guys with a lot of experience to these places, and they are our intelligence, they are our boots on ground to see what is needed there. And that's right, sometimes we decide to send the field hospital even before they are arriving there, even before they send us the information about what's happening there. But it's very important that when we land there, we find these guys there, and actually the information that they give us are very important for the way of establishing the field hospital and the place where to have this field hospital at the affected country. The military preparedness. Sometimes they're asking me how you can do that. We do not have a field hospital ready to go in Israel. And actually the personnel are part of them, people who are serving the military, like me, and the majority of them are people who are working in hospitals. They are reserve people in Israel. And since we have what we call an on-alert mentality in Israel, every citizen in Israel either serving the military or reserving the military. So it's very easy for us to bring them together and have them together. This is part of the military preparedness that we have. The military preparedness taught us to work in parallel. So while somebody is taking care for the personnel, the other is taking care for the equipment and for the logistic items and etc. So it's very important to work in parallel in order to shorten the time needed for the takeoff from Tel Aviv to wherever we have to go. The military-civilian collaboration, I mentioned the personnel. It's very easy for the CEO of one of the hospitals, for example, to say, I'm not sending my pediatrician or neonatologist or OBG or whatever. The opposite is right. All of them are interested in sending their personnel as part of this humanitarian mission. So it's very important that whenever there is a need for such a mission, all the country, not only the military, all the country is going together and working together. One of the first things that we have to do is to convert this team of experts to an expert team. Some of the people here have never met before. And probably the first time that they are going to work together, it's under a tent. It's under a tent in a field hospital. So it's very important to know each other before the takeoff. The prior experience is very important for us, and that's right. The more experience we have, the more delegations we have, the best we can do it. Collaboration. We collaborate with whomever is in the field. Last time we had, you see here, a part of the Chinese field hospital. You see here a Colombian team who came to Haiti, and they came, they were like 20 surgeons and the anesthesiologists, and they thought that they can work with one of the hospitals, one of the local hospitals. But they didn't know that almost all the hospitals were totally destroyed. That's the reason that these guys came to our hospital and worked as part of this hospital together with our team and work together. We have to decide what kind of field hospital we need. That means if it's integrated hospital or independent hospital. We have the both possibility to do what is needed. We have to decide whether it's concentrated on treating with sick people, like epidemic cases or others, or injured people, like an earthquake and other situations. So this is what we decide. In the case of Haiti, since we knew that almost all the hospitals there are totally destroyed, we decided to be totally independent. We decided that our field hospital will be totally independent in Haiti. In the Philippines, they asked us to work in collaboration with them. And that's the reason that it's totally different between the two types of the field hospital here. You see, it's not a hospital, it's a field hospital. That's the reason that all the facilities are in tents, including where we go to sleep, including the OBGYN, the intensive care units. Every tent is separated for another department, and we have all the facilities that is needed. This is the case in Philippines. We worked in one of the hospitals, one of the clinics there, as they asked us to do. When we are talking about the Nepal mission, which I leaded, which I commanded, this is the structure of the hospital, and you see we have operating rooms, emergency room, OBGYN, inpatients, and intensive care unit. This is our intensive care unit. I was very proud of this intensive care unit because 3 physicians who worked there were 3 head of intensive care unit in Israel. It's amazing. The medical information, we are doing according to the standards in Israel. We are recording everything that is done there. That's the reason that 2 years ago, the WHO recognized the field hospital of the State of Israel as the only field hospital level 3 in the world. And we got an award about that. I think it's very sense of pride that we are the only in the world that have this field hospital. This is the staff. You see that we have here physicians, nurses, and what is needed to operate totally independent in this field hospital, including logistic, laboratory, medical photographer, and whatever is needed. I wrote here volunteers because sometimes it's amazing. All of you can be part of the field hospital. All of you, almost all of you. I have here a photo of part of our volunteers. One of them is an orthopedic in San Francisco that he's working in San Francisco. He has a clinic, and whenever there's a disaster in Israel, he comes there and works as an orthopedic. When he knew that we are in Nepal having this field hospital, he came with us, not with us, he bought a ticket from San Francisco to Nepal, and he worked with us as one of the orthopedics in the field hospital. This is what happened in Nepal. More than 1,600 patients and Nepalese people were treated in our hospital. Can you play it, please? This is the field hospital. The emergency room, the operating room. Two operating beds. That's it. Seems very nice in the slides. I'll skip this one, and I'll go through the other very unique and very special humanitarian mission that we have in the last couple of years. This is the treating the wounded Syrians, and I wrote down that it's a unique case, and it's a tailor-made solution. Since we have it, it's a man-made disaster. It's a hostile border, and it's very nearby the Israel. So you might know that in March 2011, the civil war in Syria started, and actually it was part of what is happening in the area in what we call the Arabic Spring. And at the beginning, it was in the big cities, far away from the Israeli border. And what shall we do in such a case? It's very far away from the border. We have nothing to do. It's a hostile country. So actually, we did nothing except of learning what is happening in the other side. And what we learned, that the sources are very, very limited, that local hospitals are either full capacity or destroyed, that a lot of medical personnel went out of the country, and that a lot of Syrians are going as refugees either to Turkey or Jordan, seeking for treatment. Antonio Guterres from the UN wrote that this was the greatest humanitarian disaster of the past 2 decades, requiring the largest ever humanitarian appeal. This is what the UN said. What the UN did, I don't know. What Israel did, the first time was on February 2013. And as you imagine, February in the Golan Heights is very cold. Not like Boston, but it's very cold. And 7 Syrians decided not to die, 7 injured Syrians decided not to die in their homeland. Rather than they decided to go to the west, to the hostile border, seeking for treatment. And this is what they did. They went to the west. They found our personnel, our medical personnel, military medical ones who were there not for the Syrians. Our personnel were there for our soldiers, for our citizens. But they remembered what we told them to do, that whenever there is a need for us, we will be there. And when they found these Syrians, and when they realized that the Syrians' lives depends on the things that they have to do, they did the right thing. And they gave them a primary care at the border. And then, again on Saturday morning, they are calling me when I was the head of the Northern Command, the Northern Medical Command, and asking me, what else can we do? They are primarily treated. One of them is severely injured with an abdominal injury, bleeding, suffering from hypothermia, and what else can be done? And I thought that in order to save their lives, they have to be transferred to the hospital. But they are Syrians. They are not citizens. They are not soldiers. So I consulted with my commander. He was the vice chief of staff later, Yair Golan, and he asked me one question. He asked me only one question: what if not? What will happen to these Syrians if we are not going to transfer them to the hospital? And I said, one of them at least will die. without doubt, he told me, go ahead. Go with them to the hospital, and all of them went to the nearest hospital in Tzfat. All of them were hospitalized there, operated there. 6 of them were transferred back almost 10 days after that, and the severely injured was there almost 1 month, and he was discharged later back to Syria. I assume that if that was the story, I wasn't standing here and telling you what is happening with the Syrians. But you can imagine that after these 7 Syrians, more and more Syrians decided the same decision, not to die in Syria, but rather than to go to the border seeking for treatment. We thought that in order to save their lives and in order not to endanger their lives, we decided to build a field hospital just near the border. Because we thought that bringing them to the Israeli hospital at that time will endanger their lives upon their return back to Syria. That's the reason that we built a field hospital just near the border. And for a couple of months, for almost half a year, we treated the Syrians in our field hospital. And only the minority of the cases that there was a need for further treatment, we transferred them to the civilian hospital. We did that in order to save their lives and not to endanger their lives upon their return back to Syria. So the primary care was given by our soldiers. You have to remember these soldiers are 19 years old, 20 years old. Part of them are medics, part of them are paramedics. They were there for our soldiers, but they were there also for the Syrians to do. This is the rule 1. This is what is happening at the field. This paramedic is treating a Syrian. You see him here. And this one is a nurse in the operating room in the Rule 2 Plus, that means in our field hospital, which operated in the first 6 months of treatment. We do that day and night, regardless of the weather. It's raining, it's sunny, whatever, we do that. And you see, she's a medic, he is a paramedic, and medics. So they are working together, civilian teams and military teams. And this is the Israeli-Syrian border. The same border that protects Israel is the same border that lets the Syrian people to come to Israel and be treated by the Israeli people. This slide makes me very proud of what we are doing. The upper part of this slide is what we decided to do for our soldiers in order to eliminate preventable death. We decided a couple of years ago to buy intensive evacuation, blood replacements. It's a German product. It's called fresh dried plasma. We bought it for our soldiers. We bought it for our teams and all the technology. And when we started treating the Syrians, we decided that there are no teams, one for the Israelis, one for the Syrians. There are no types of equipment, one for the Syrians and one for the Israelis. The same equipment, the same teams are for both of them. This is what we think, this is what we believe, and this is what we did. What are the challenges? First of all, the cultural and language barrier. None of the Syrians yet speaks Hebrew. And the minority of our personnel speaks Arabic. Part of them are Druze, part of them are Jewish that who speak Arabic. And this was one of the challenges. So we decided that whenever we are operating our field hospital, at least part of the personnel, they were Arabic speakers in order to be sure that they can collaborate and speak to the Syrians there. I'm sorry, there is a slide, it's a little bit difficult to see, so you can close your eyes if you want, or can skip it for a minute. So this is the challenges of bringing a lady with her daughters to bring her to the treatment in Israel. Defining the spectrum of care. When we are talking about humanitarian mission, we are talking about giving a normal, a minimal treatment for as much as you can. But in the case of the Syrian, we decided to go a little bit further than that. So instead of giving them the treatment on the border and sending them back to Syria, and of course part of them will die because it's not the definitive treatment, so we decided to go a little bit further than that to hospitalize when there is a need for that. And if you see this, for example, it's much more than humanitarian mission. It's to give them more treatment even upon their return back to Syria. Continuity of care. We decided to work according to the standards of what we are working in Israel. So every patient who were discharged to Syria went back with a chart, with the documentation, what is happening with him, what kind of operation have been done, and what is the further treatment that is needed to do. This is, for example, a letter we got from Syria upon regarding one of the Syrian who came to us. Of course, it's written here. It's in Arabic. It's written the vital signs, what is happening with him. But it's very difficult to continue care with these Syrians. These are the numbers at the first year. You see, we started with 7 patients in February 2013, and the numbers climbed up and reached almost 100 Syrians per month. Until now, we have treated more than almost 5,000 Syrians in Israel. It's amazing. 5,000 Syrians who were treated in Israel. Most of them, their lives were saved in Israel, and they were returned back to Syria. We thought it's some kind of trust building. They started to trust us, that they can come to Israel, be treated by the Israeli people, and they can be sure that they are returned back to Syria. I'm sorry for that. I'll show it again. I think it's one of the slides which demonstrates most what is happening in Syria and what's happening in Israel. So I'll show it again. This guy came to Israel. I don't know how he survived the hours until he arrived to Israel. This child came with both amputation of both legs and a partial amputation of his hand. Can you play this video, please?
Right. Finish right. Good.
That's it. Thank you.
גדול. תגיד לו שהוא גבר.
Thank you.
بطل بقول لك
גבר.
شد حيلك
Yeah, you can.
כן? בסדר? שנייה, שיושב כאן.
I think it's amazing. Thinking about these guys who know what happened to them in Syria and what happened to them in Israel, I'm sure there are, let's say, better neighbors for Israel. And beside that, we are all going with a sense of pride that we saved these lives, regardless of the fact that they are Syrians, their children, their whatever they are. And yes, it's not without dangers. More than once, at the field hospital, there were rockets from Syria. And we have to take care for ourselves, for our soldiers, and for our patients from Syria, and to go to the tunnels in order to be sure that they are in a safe place. And another dilemma is, what shall we do when the resources are limited? It's not an endless resources. So I can tell you that every Syrian who decided to go to the border seeking for treatment, they were treated, either in the border or in the hospitals. And patient safety upon their return to Syria, I mentioned the field hospital, and that was the reason that we have this field hospital at the beginning, in order to be sure that they were not killed after they came back to Syria because they were treated in Israel. But since then, since there were thousands of people who were treated in Israel, and actually it's no more secret. So I assume that it's a little bit different with what's happening right now. So to summarize, leadership is very important. To be there as soon as possible. I'm talking about the humanitarian mission in general. And you have to do a tailor-made hospital according to what is needed there. Of course, using our prior experience and keeping the possibility of being totally independent whenever there is a need for that. Thinking out of the box. It's not like operating a hospital, even though it's not easy to operate an hospital in Boston or in Israel or whatever, but operating a field hospital, there are much more dilemmas for that. And of course, the collaboration is very important. Thank you very much.